All right, so welcome to lesson 10. So we are almost done with this unit. We only have two more, including this one. So we're going to go ahead and start talking about nature versus nurture. So, what are you? What made you that way? Is it something where you inherit it from your family, or is it something where it's just a product of the environment that you're in? So, when we look at nature versus nurture, it is one of the oldest debates in psychology. It's one of the oldest issues. So, we look at, is this a disorder that someone inherited from a family member? Or is this just the way they're raised? Is this something we need to look at, biologically how they are as a person? Or is it literally just, hey, this person was raised this way and that's why they act that way? So, when we start looking at nature, we're looking at genes. We're looking at the hereditary factors. We're looking at what you got from your parents. So, we're not only looking at, physically what you got from your parents, like eye color, hair color, skin color, everything like that. We're also looking at your personality characteristics that you got from them. Now, nurture kind of takes a different approach. So instead of looking at your genes, we're looking at the environment that you came from. So your early childhood experiences, how you were raised, what kind of relationships you had with friends, family, the culture you grew up in. So the neighborhoods, things like that. And anything that can have an influence on you that does not come from within a person. So when we say that, we don't mean, hey, I have this disorder, schizophrenia, bipolar runs in my family. That's why I act like this. No, we are looking more so at, okay, what happened to you when you were younger? Or how were you raised and how is that impacting you now? So you'll see some of these, and on your assignment, you're going to go ahead and kind of label where you think it's at and why you think it falls in that category. But again, nature, that's going to be genetics. All right, that is something that you were born with. You can't change regionally. As where nurture is just kind of what happened around you, what's happening in your environment. So going through some of these, we'll look at a characteristic and then if it falls. So height. Do you think you can change your height? Well, no. Though we can wear taller shoes and stuff like that, our height is typically just our height, right? We can't just kind of go in and change our height one day. We are a certain height and we are that way because of the genes that we inherited. Creativity. So, this is one that has been debated. Some people believe that creativity is just genetics, that if one person's an artist, maybe their child will be more likely to be an artist. In other situations, people believe that it's just nurture. So I want you guys to go through, start looking at those and start saying, okay, how does this play out? How do I think that, you know, a person would react? Do I think it's just an environmental factor where they just weren't taught a certain thing? Or do I think it's a nature thing? I will tell you, a lot of these are a mixture of both. A lot of these, even if it is nature, it is genetics, nurture does have a huge impact on it. So I want you guys to go through those whenever you guys get a second. But we're gonna go back through and we're gonna talk a little bit more about these, okay? So, one thing you can watch later is, are criminals born or made? So, this is a very interesting concept because some people believe that psychopathy, some people believe that, being a killer is a genetic thing. Other people believe it's just, how you reacted is what has happened to you in the past. So, a lot of people lean more towards what has happened to you. You'll notice a lot of research will say, hey, serial killers typically have these home situations going on. So I want you guys to take a second, watch that later. But the reason we're doing this is because when you encounter situations like this, it's important to think about, what's happening naturally within the body. And then also, is it because how someone was raised? So this person, Charles Whitman, he was involved in a 1966 University of Texas school shooting. So what he said was that he started having all these unusual, irrational thoughts, that he started having headaches, all of these things. So this kind of caused a debate because people were like, okay, well, this is clearly a disorder, right? I mean, he's having all these experiences, he's having all these symptoms. Maybe he can't control it. Other people said, no, he chose to do this. It was not a genetic thing. He was influenced by other people and his surroundings. So it really just depends on what your views are and what area of psych that you're studying, what perspective you're coming at it with. All right. So for him, they actually happened to find a brain tumor pressing against regions of the brain. So the areas that were able to regulate those strong emotions, that tumor was pushing on it, cutting off blood flow, making it where he could not have access to it. So when you're looking at nature versus nurture, we use biological psychology to really start to argue this, especially the nature side. So behavioral geneticists are a big thing. They look at what you got from your parents, how it is expressing in its environment, and they really tend to stress the importance of genetics and of the influence you get physically from the cells. So, with that being said, biological approach it does help excuse me, one of those mornings, guys. It does help yield useful treatments, um, but it often doesn't account for influences on behavior. So yes, you can look at a person and say, okay, they don't have as much serotonin or dopamine. That's why they're having this issue, and start to use it from there. But it also doesn't look at other situations. So they're not looking at maybe this person's parents got divorced. Maybe this person had a traumatic event going on. Maybe they are being bullied at school and their emotions are, kind of off. So it doesn't necessarily look at everything it needs to. One big thing that we've mentioned a few times now is heredity. So heredity, anything that's hereditary, it means that it's transmitted from parents to their kids. So some disorders are hereditary, some have hereditary links. Bipolar is one. If you choose to have a child with someone who has bipolar, if you are bipolar and have one, you have a 50% chance of that child becoming bipolar. So that's a pretty strong link right there. It has been thought of that anxiety is actually a pretty similar way that if you have anxiety, there's a chance that you are actually passing that gene on to your child. Right. So genes, they're the blueprint for the body. They help kind of make up how everything grows, and they essentially can change during time. They'll turn off due to different proteins. That's about the time frame we're going to cut right there. But if you look at this test, there are a lot of disorders that can help, kind of be hereditary. And we won't really look at twin studies too much, but that is something that can be impacted. If you were interested, definitely feel free to read it. But for the purpose of this class, we are going to go ahead and cut that right there. And just know that nature versus nurture, they are two totally different things. They are two things that are equally important, but they definitely change how you look at different disorders. They definitely change how and what perspective you use.